Welcome to the Imago Dei Recovery Podcast, where we can discover God's heart and unearth the masterpiece of God's image inside us. In today's episode, we'll look at honesty and what it looks like in each stage of recovery. Welcome to the Imago Dei Recovery Podcast. Today, we're going to look at honesty. What is it, and what does it look like in various stages of recovery? Many people view being honest as simply not lying and telling the truth when asked. But is there more? Today, we'll look at what true honesty looks like and why it is such a struggle for those of us dealing with unwanted sexual behaviors. Honesty is very difficult for many of us throughout recovery, myself included. In fact, this is something that I still struggle with today, as I uncover new ways that I am continuing in my dishonesty and attempts to control how others see me. Additionally, I've been guilty of many, if not all, of the examples discussed in this episode. For many of us, as we enter recovery, we have been lying for all of our lives. We learn to lie before we even gain these unwanted sexual behaviors that we have been hiding from so much of the world. We do this for a variety of reasons. Many of these have to do with image management, trying to control how people see us in our workplaces and in our married lives and throughout many facets of our relationships with others. We want to appear a certain way, and so we hide, we keep secrets, we tell half-truths, and we prevent people from seeing who we truly are. Other ways that we may avoid living a truth-first life involve the ways that we show up in relationship. Are we showing up the way that we feel like we are expected to? Or are we showing up authentically and vulnerably? These behaviors are learned early in life, and they're used to keep us safe. We've found that when we're honest, that bad things happen, whether that's getting in trouble with our parents, getting in trouble at school, having a friend reject us, or being rejected by someone that we are attracted to. Bad things have happened. A child may begin to lie because of abusive parents or parents who didn't understand or support their choices. In other words, they felt unsafe and felt like they needed to lie in order to be safe. Or maybe we've had dishonesty modeled to us in our lives. We've never had a vulnerable relationship with our parents and always lifted them up on a pedestal and thought that they were perfect, that they could do no wrong. And as imperfect people, we felt like we could never live up to those expectations. And thus, we started pretending like we had it all together, pretending like we were perfect, and lying to cover up and hiding those failures and mistakes that we made so that we could feel like we measured up to those that we looked up to. We may have had dishonesty modeled to us in other ways, where we've had those that we look up to, those in our lives who hide their own, and we see their own masks, and we see them pretending to be a certain way in public and being a different way in private. And so we learn to take up our own mask. Or a child may begin to lie because they perceive the expectations that their parents or the church culture that they are brought up in have. The expectation of perfection may never have been communicated to them in either of these settings. But the idea that you better not mess up or screw up certainly was communicated. As such, they begin to hide their imperfections and their mistakes. They begin to create an image of perfection, living up to the expectations that they perceive. Yes, it seems like dishonesty and lies can be harder to beat sometimes than the actual unwanted sexual behaviors themselves. I know this has been the case in my life, as I can continue to struggle with wanting to appear a certain way to certain groups of people and to react in certain ways when I feel unsafe, when I feel attacked, when I feel like I'm going to let somebody down, or even when I've just made a simple mistake and I don't want to admit it and I want to make myself appear better to my wife or my kids. True honesty, though, is about more than just not telling lies and being honest when we're asked questions. Someone has to ask us 20 questions to ask the exact right one for us to answer honestly about what has happened. Are we really being honest? I would wager that most of you can see how this is not true honesty. Yet, getting to this place of honesty is a huge process and one that can take a long time as we go through different stages of recovery. Let's explore those stages now. We first enter recovery, we have built up an entire system of hiding these behaviors. Otherwise, we would have been caught sooner. We would have had everything out in the light, or at least part of our behaviors in the light at an earlier date. We've made habits of lying about where we went after work, what we were doing on the computer, who sent that text message, why did that pop up appear, where did that email come from, and on and on and on. We have been hiding for fear of being known. We've had thoughts that if people knew the true us, they'd run away screaming, that no one could ever love us, that we have to take care of ourselves because no one else will. As we enter recovery, we must combat these lies. We must find people that we can be open and vulnerable with, that we can begin to explore honesty with. We must even learn to be honest with ourselves, because many of us have been hiding how big an impact pornography, masturbation, and other unwanted sexual behaviors have had in our lives. We've denied how much we feel like we need these behaviors. We've denied the impact that they have, or we felt like every time that we've acted out that it is the last time, and that this part of us that desires those unwanted sexual behaviors is not truly us. And that's true to a point. Still, we must admit that these unwanted sexual behaviors are part of us and that we need healing. We must recover the image of God inside each and every one of us. And to do so, we must step into the light. We must share our struggles, share the details with people that we trust. Now, we don't do this all at once. We do this in stages. And a great place for something like this to happen is in a recovery group, in a group where there are men with the same goal, the same honesty, the same vulnerability, with a leader who shares his story and is vulnerable in ways that we haven't ever seen before. Only in a safe place like this can we reveal our secrets and see that we are still loved. We aren't rejected as we had feared. They didn't run away screaming, but they support, love, and encourage us despite our failings, knowing full well how many times we have acted out in the last week, the last month, the last year. In these groups, we find that we can reveal our deepest, darkest secrets, things we never thought that we would tell another soul, the types of activities that always attracted us, types of pornography we watched, the types of relationships that we pursued. We can share with them our fears and our desires. We can share with them our struggles, our triggers. We can learn how to be honest in relationship with these vulnerable, open, honest men. As we learn to engage with our stories and share our secrets in a safe setting, in a group, or with a therapist, we also need to start working on establishing honesty in other areas of our life. If we're married, what does this honesty look like with our spouse? I would say that first and foremost, it looks like admitting our relapses and striving to see our spouse's pain, working on being forthcoming with information to our spouses rather than forcing her to ask the very specific right question that will elicit a truthful response. This is hard to do. It's scary, and we are worried that our spouse will leave us, but is necessary to start living a life of honesty. Your wife deserves to know how big a struggle this is for you currently. I heard a thought from Bob Vandermeer, a Pure Desire clinician, the other day. He said that if you have great ability to lie, then you also have great capacity for empathy. In our lies and attempts to control the image that others have of us, we are already perceiving and attuning to the expectations that we believe that others have. As such, we can learn to attune to the emotions of those around us. We can learn to be empathetic. If you're not married, you're single at this time, I would encourage you to find somebody else outside of your recovery group that you can share with as well, so that you can also experience healing in a relationship outside of your recovery group. With people outside of our recovery circles and outside of our important relationships, honesty looks like being present in conversations and sharing as it is appropriate and safe to do so. We don't have to share our stories with everybody that comes along in order to be honest, but we do need to be present in those relationships and try and give as truthful a response as we can. In my life, this has looked like answering I'm here when people ask how I'm doing, even saying things like I'm struggling right now and seeing if they will engage in conversation with me. Most of the time, they didn't, and that's okay. I gave an honest response of where I'm at that talked to the safety of the relationship that I had with the person asking me. As we continue in recovery and start experiencing healing and feeling freedom from some of these unwanted sexual behaviors, we can engage in a deeper level of honesty. If we're married at some point in time, this should involve a full disclosure, preferably led by a therapist or someone who has been trained in the disclosure process. Examples of someone who has been trained would be a CSAT or certified sex addiction therapist, or someone who has disclosure guide training. My disclosure honestly was not done this way. It was just done with my wife and myself. But in retrospect, I wish that we had had somebody there to help us walk through this process. As we experience freedom, we continue to share on a deeper level with those in recovery around us, those relationships that we have formed and continue, whether in a group setting or a personal setting. We share triggers. We explore what is driving unwanted behaviors. We explore areas where we feel defensive and where we feel the need to lie. We continue to dive deeper and deeper into our stories and uncover things that we wish to receive healing from. On a personal level, these are things that I am dealing with and struggling with today. Learning how to be honest when I feel defensive, when I feel attacked, when I feel like I have let somebody down. I can feel so triggered that I will tell a half truth or whatever I need to proceed in this realm of image management that I've struggled with for so long, to make myself look better to my wife, my kids, and those that love me. I can lie about why I didn't listen to a conversation, or why I didn't hear someone say something, or why I forgot to take the trash out. You see, living an honest lifestyle means telling the truth, even in those situations where it might be painful. We've come to accept that God loves us for who we are, not for what we do, but we still feel like we need to lie to those around us. We're not fully living in that identity that God has given us. You see, living a life of honesty is difficult. It requires us to live a truth-first life, not just a non-lying life. A truth-first life, a life where we're not hiding and living a life of image management. Image management meaning controlling or manipulating what others think of you. I want to caution us that living a truth-first life doesn't mean that we bludgeon or steamroll people with the truth. It doesn't mean that we are honest for the sake of being honest, and we don't care about how the truth makes other people feel. It does mean that we communicate honestly, lovingly, and authentically with those that are around us. Living this kind of life is a further step of recovery, and one we should all strive for. It requires living from the Imago Dei, or God image, inside of us, and knowing that our value comes from Him. These are things that I'm still learning to see myself as the masterpiece that God has made me. But the benefits of living an honest, truth-first life are many. First and foremost, we can live a life of being truly known, accepted, and loved. Accepted and loved by God, and accepted and loved by those close to us. Knowing that the way that they see us is not impacted by one choice or one decision, but that they love us for who we are and who God created us to be. We can live a life of confidence that our value comes from our identity in Christ and not what others think of us, ourselves included. Our value comes from who God made us. Honesty is incredibly scary. It's a risk that we take each and every time that we tell the truth. A risk of disappointing others, disappointing ourselves, feeling pain, being rejected, but it's how we are meant to live. So, what are some tools that we can use to help develop honesty? Prayer, praying to God that He will help us be honest, praying that He will reveal our secrets and dishonesty in our lives to us, and that He will help us live a life of integrity and honesty. Finding mentors and peers in recovery and investing in those relationships. Having somebody that's further along in the journey than you that can help you identify the dishonesty and the secrets in your life. Having peers that are on the same journey as you are, that you can be more and more vulnerable with, that love you and accept you for who you are, and that communicate that love to you in very real and tangible ways. Journaling, spending time writing out your thoughts. Therapist, again, someone that you can share all your secrets with, and that will help you become more honest, that will help you build the character that you desire. An honesty journal, this is one that I'm currently putting into practice, where every day I look through my conversations and I write down ways that I have been dishonest, and I confess those if there are any, and situations where I was even tempted to be dishonest. And then, with kindness and compassion and curiosity, I ask myself why I was tempted to be dishonest in those situations. What outcome was I trying to avoid? What outcome was I hoping for? What was triggering to me in that situation? And how can I deal with that situation in the future to help live a truth first life? It takes hard work to maintain a truth first life, a life of honesty and integrity. But that's what God desires for us. That's part of living out of the image of God inside of us, part of being the masterpiece that He has created us to be. Thank you for listening. I look forward to reading your comments and hearing what your thoughts of this episode are. Remember, you are God's masterpiece.